It's actually the people around the whole world logging onto Netflix last night to find not one, not two, but 3 episodes from the new Harry and Meghan documentary. And after years of speculation, we got to hear their side of the story, their relationship, and also what happens beyond the tabloid.
Meghan expected Balmoral to confront her with cold rooms, guarded expressions, and memories she had spent years trying to escape. She did not expect to discover that a part of her royal identity had already been destroyed. On the first official briefing sheet placed before her, the charity title once attached to her name was simply gone. No correction mark, no explanation, only a blank space where her authority had once been acknowledged. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Meghan had arrived beside Prince Harry after receiving a tightly worded invitation from King Charles. The message spoke of privacy, family, and the need for a calm conversation away from public pressure. She believed Balmoral might become the place where years of bitterness were finally addressed. The Scottish estate was one of the royal family's most private residences, a retreat where serious family matters could be handled beyond the formal walls of London. She expected discomfort. She did not expect an ambush. An equerry approached with the official household briefing folder and placed it before her. The folder contained guest schedules, approved names, charitable roles, and protocol instructions for everyone staying at the estate. Protocol meant the formal rules governing how royal events, titles, and duties were presented. Meghan turned the pages slowly until she reached her own entry. The words were missing. Royal Patron of the Commonwealth Women's Initiative had vanished from the current briefing, the charitable register, the guest protocol, and the Balmoral archive reference attached to her name. A royal patron was a public figure formally linked to a charity to give it visibility, credibility, and influence. For Meghan, that title had represented more than ceremony. It had been proof that her work survived even after her royal life fell apart. She read the page twice. Her hand stopped over the empty line, and her expression hardened. Harry leaned closer. "What is it?" Meghan closed the folder with painful control. "They have erased it." The Duke of Sussex moved instantly. Anger pulled him toward the door before reason could slow him. He saw the removal as deliberate humiliation, prepared in advance and placed where his wife could not avoid finding it. Meghan caught his wrist. "No," she said quietly. "Leaving is what they expect." That restraint changed the room. Her anger was not loud, but it was far more dangerous because it was focused. Harry reopened the folder and found a handwritten processing date. The documents had been revised only 48 hours earlier. The decision had not followed their arrival. It had been completed because they were coming. Then Meghan noticed something else. 3 senior officials had initialed the approval page, but the space reserved for Charles was empty. Either the king had never signed the order, or someone had carefully ensured his name would not appear beside it. Harry turned to the equerry and demanded the truth. The man hesitated, lowered his voice, and finally revealed that the revised register had come through the private secretariat of the Prince of Wales, the office managing William's official work and future royal planning. The blank space beneath Meghan's name was painful, but the name behind the order threatened something far more explosive. A direct confrontation between Harry and the brother he no longer trusted. The removal of a title appeared administrative, almost bloodless. Yet behind that missing line stood 4 people carrying years of injury into the same isolated castle. Meghan saw the decision as an attack on her purpose. Harry saw it as another punishment aimed at his wife. William viewed it as protection for the crown. Charles faced the terrifying possibility that his sons were about to force him to choose between family peace and royal control. Meghan remained seated after the equerry left, but her calm had become brittle. The charity designation had never been a decorative phrase to her. A designation was an officially recognized role, linking a person to an organization and its public work. She had treated that connection as proof that her efforts for women and girls still mattered, even after her place within royal life had collapsed. Losing access to palaces had hurt. Seeing her service erased felt far more personal. Harry paced across their assigned sitting room, anger sharpening every step. He remembered invitations delivered too late, announcements approved without consultation, and family decisions presented as facts once resistance was impossible. The Duke of Sussex, a title given to the king's younger son, no longer saw the missing words as an isolated act. To him, they confirmed that the same machinery was moving again, quietly reducing Meghan's place before either of them could object. William carried a different fear. The prince had begun consolidating royal patronages as part of a wider restructuring, meaning a formal reorganization of who represented the monarchy and under what authority. Legal advisors had warned him that dormant titles could confuse donors, foreign partners, and governments. One organization might believe Meghan spoke for the crown, while palace officials insisted she acted independently. The future king believed such uncertainty could damage both the charity and the monarchy. Charles received the news in his private study through a handwritten note from his senior aide. The king read it once, removed his spectacles, and pressed both hands against the desk. "She was never supposed to discover it this way," he whispered. His fear was immediate. If Harry believed the visit had been designed as a trap, the fragile hope of family reconciliation would collapse before the first serious conversation began. Meghan then found another detail buried inside the supporting papers. A confidential diary entry recorded that Catherine had attended an early meeting about the patronage review. The Princess of Wales had not signed the final order, but her presence changed the emotional balance. Meghan began to wonder whether Catherine had quietly supported the removal while remaining publicly untouched by the conflict. Harry wanted answers immediately. Meghan wanted something more dangerous: accountability in the same room. Charles sent an aide offering a private conversation, but she refused. She would speak only with the king, William, Harry, and the person who had witnessed the meeting that first triggered the review. To understand why Meghan demanded that specific witness, the story must return to a charity reception where one sentence turned a strained arrangement into an irreversible royal decision. The title had not disappeared because of a vague disagreement or a slow cooling of palace affection. It vanished because of one specific moment 6 months earlier. At a private Commonwealth charity reception in London, Meghan made an announcement that palace officials believed crossed an invisible boundary. The room applauded. William did not. By the time the guests had left, a single sentence spoken near the stage had triggered the review that would eventually follow Meghan all the way to Balmoral. Meghan had remained listed in older palace records as royal patron of the Commonwealth Women's Initiative, even after stepping back from official duties. A royal patron was a recognized public figure who lent status and attention to a charitable organization. The unusual arrangement allowed her name to remain connected to the initiative, but the palace no longer controlled her appearances, speeches, or fundraising plans. That gap had become impossible to ignore. William's advisors had warned him repeatedly that two centers of authority were forming. Meghan spoke through her independent platform, while the monarchy continued running its own Commonwealth program. Donors could not always tell who represented the crown. Diplomats feared receiving conflicting messages. The prince saw confusion. Meghan saw freedom. Everything broke at the Commonwealth Women's Leadership Reception at Lancaster House, a historic London venue used for major diplomatic gatherings. Meghan stood before donors, journalists, and foreign representatives, and announced plans for a global fundraising branch operating under the initiative's royal identity. She had not sought palace approval. The applause was immediate. William's silence was colder. William confronted her in a private corridor after the reception. Prince William told Meghan she could not expand a royal organization while rejecting royal oversight. She answered that the title belonged to service, not obedience, and accused him of treating charitable work like inherited property. Neither raised their voice at first. That restraint made every word sharper. Harry arrived as the tension finally broke. Prince Harry moved beside Meghan and told his brother that removing the title would prove the institution valued control more than results. William replied that the crown could not survive if every private grievance became an independent royal mandate. The argument was no longer about one charity. It had become a fight over who possessed the right to define royal service. Catherine approached before either man could step back. Meghan looked directly at William and said, "You cannot erase the work simply because you want to erase the person." The Princess of Wales heard every word. She remained silent, but her expression changed. William ordered a formal legal review that same evening. A legal review was an official examination of whether a role, title, or decision complied with palace rules and constitutional responsibility. Charles received the findings weeks later and delayed action, hoping reconciliation might remove the need for a final decision. William refused to leave the issue unresolved forever. He quietly set a deadline. The designation had to be settled before Meghan next entered an official royal residence. Then the Balmoral invitation was issued. The dormant file suddenly became urgent, and someone approved the revised documents only days before her arrival. The reception had supplied the motive, but Balmoral would provide the battlefield, and this time, no corridor, advisor, or polite reception could keep Meghan and William apart. When Meghan finally entered the library, William was already standing beside the long table, one hand resting on the disputed register. Harry remained close to his wife. Charles sat between his sons, but looked unable to bridge the distance separating them. Then the final aide withdrew, the heavy door closed, and royal ceremony vanished. There were no cameras, no prepared smiles, and no safe language left. Only 4 people, and the document that had reopened every wound. Meghan refused to begin, while communications secretaries and legal advisors remained. She wanted no polished explanation, and no official shield between the decision and the person who made it. A communications secretary manages public statements, while a legal advisor guides decisions through formal rules. She wanted neither. She wanted William. William accepted responsibility. Prince William said he had instructed his office to complete the review and remove the charity designation from active royal records. He did not blame staff or soften the choice. The prince said authority tied to the crown could not be used outside the system controlling it. Meghan pushed the folder across the table. "Did deleting one line make you feel safer?" she asked. William left it untouched. He said the issue was accountability, not fear. Royal authority, he argued, could not be claimed when convenient and rejected when oversight became uncomfortable. Meghan answered that service had never been convenient for her. It had cost her standing, trust, and peace. Harry turned toward Charles. The Duke of Sussex asked why their father had invited them to Balmoral without warning them. The king admitted he had planned to explain everything after dinner. Harry's voice hardened. Secrecy, he said, had turned a difficult decision into an ambush. Meghan then unfolded an older palace letter. The documented account promised that her relationship with the initiative would be reviewed in consultation with her. Consultation meant a direct discussion before a final decision. No such discussion had happened. William said trust had collapsed through lawyers, statements, and months of hostile correspondence. The future king believed meaningful consultation had become impossible. Meghan stared at him. Distrust does not cancel a written promise. Charles tried to intervene. William lifted a pen and placed it sharply beside the register. "I will not restore the title simply to avoid being called cruel," he said. Meghan did not look away. "Then do not restore it. Admit what it was designed to do." The silence broke when Charles revealed, through the private meeting record before him, that another royal had approved the policy months earlier, Princess Anne. William had carried out the decision, but Anne had built the principle behind it, and her reasoning would force the family to confront an uncomfortable distinction between service and ownership. Princess Anne did not enter the dispute with anger. She entered with a thin folder, a steady expression, and the confidence of someone who had spent decades treating royal duty as an obligation rather than a possession. Meghan expected institutional defense. What she received was something more difficult to dismiss, a direct argument that no individual, however wounded or celebrated, could carry a royal title beyond the structure that gave it meaning. Yet Anne's folder also contained evidence William had never disclosed. Anne took her seat opposite Meghan in a smaller drawing room and opened the file without ceremony. The Princess Royal had chaired an internal working group examining inactive patronages, duplicated charitable roles, and titles retained by family members who no longer performed official duties. A working group was a small committee formed to study a specific problem and recommend action. Her task had not been to target one person. It had been to decide whether royal authority could remain attached to roles the palace no longer supervised. Meghan listened as Anne explained her central principle. Patronages belonged neither to the individual nor to the palace. They existed for the charity and had to remain tied to clear responsibility. The princess said she respected the work Meghan had completed, but past service could not create permanent ownership of royal power. Meghan pressed one thumb against her wedding ring. The pain was visible, but she did not look away. Meghan then asked the question Anne could not easily dismiss. Why had other royal figures kept honorary links despite controversy, reduced duties, and years of inactivity? Anne paused before answering. She admitted the monarchy had often protected senior family members more generously than those standing outside its inner circle. The system, she said, had not always applied its own standards fairly. That admission changed the room. Anne turned several pages and showed Meghan that a wider removal plan already existed. Dormant patronages linked to multiple relatives were marked for review. Yet William's office had accelerated Meghan's case before the Balmoral visit, making hers the first and most public test. Then came the document William had not mentioned. Anne had written that Meghan must be informed personally before any records were changed. Her note warned that altering the documents in silence would make a defensible policy appear vindictive. Charles had received that recommendation. The king had delayed the conversation, hoping time would soften the conflict. Instead, his hesitation created the humiliation Anne had predicted. Meghan closed the folder and turned toward Charles. Her anger was no longer aimed only at William. "Everyone understood the danger," she said. "Why didn't the father who invited me here stop it?" The decision had been William's. The principle had been Anne's. But the silence belonged to Charles. And that silence was about to produce consequences no revised register could contain. By nightfall, Balmoral had divided into separate rooms and separate loyalties. Harry refused dinner. William withdrew from the family gathering. Anne remained furious that her warning had been ignored. Charles sat before an untouched tray while the castle moved quietly around him. Meghan, however, did not shout or pack her bags. She opened her laptop, placed the erased document beside it, and began drafting a statement that could turn a private royal failure into a global crisis. Meghan typed the first line with controlled fury. She described the removal as the deliberate deletion of years of service, then stopped after reading the paragraph aloud. The words sounded powerful, but they also sounded final. A public statement was an official message released for the press and public, and once issued, it could not easily be taken back. She deleted the paragraph and admitted to Harry that retaliation might feel satisfying, but it would not restore what had been lost. Harry urged her to release everything. The Duke of Sussex wanted the altered records, Anne's written warning, and the missing royal approval shown to the world. He believed secrecy had protected the palace for too long. Meghan understood his anger, yet she feared the charity would become another weapon in their family war. Women who depended on its programs would become background figures in a royal battle they had never chosen. Charles ordered staff to suspend every revised charity document until the process could be reviewed. The king's instruction came too late to prevent confusion. Meghan's title had already disappeared from several digital systems, while older files still listed her as patron. A digital register was the electronic record used by palace offices to track official roles and affiliations. Now even the institution could not say which version carried authority. The crisis widened when the charity board received two conflicting messages. One member was told Meghan's role had ended. Another received an earlier palace memo stating that no change could become final without direct consultation. The board froze its next campaign. Then the money began to move. Two major donors paused their commitments because they no longer knew whether the initiative was royal, independent, or trapped between both identities. William received the notice from his secretary. His face tightened, but the anger faded as he sat down slowly. The rushed decision had endangered the organization he claimed to protect. Late that night, Catherine entered without advisors. The Princess of Wales told William that winning the argument would mean nothing if the charity collapsed beneath the weight of their family conflict. Catherine's warning did not ask him to surrender royal authority. It asked whether authority without compassion was still worthy of being defended. The turning point does not come through lawyers, press secretaries, or constitutional language. It comes shortly after midnight, when Catherine knocks on Meghan's door alone. No aides wait in the corridor. No husbands sit between them. For the first time since the erased title was discovered, two women carrying years of suspicion face one another without institutional protection. What begins as a guarded conversation becomes the only honest exchange of the entire Balmoral visit, and the moment that changes the final outcome. Meghan opens the door only halfway. She remains standing and keeps one hand on the handle, ready to end the conversation before it begins. Catherine understands the message immediately. The Princess of Wales, the formal title held by the wife of the heir to the throne, has come without staff, notes, or prepared language. She says she is not there to defend William and not there to ask for silence. Catherine admits that she supported reviewing the disputed role. She believed royal patronages required active oversight because those positions carried the monarchy's name into fundraising, diplomacy, and public work. Yet she never supported changing the records without warning Meghan or protecting the charity from disruption. The princess confesses that she attended the early restructuring meeting and should have insisted on direct consultation. Meghan does not soften. She tells Catherine that private sympathy cannot repair years of public distance. Quiet regret, she says, is easy when someone else carries the humiliation. Catherine accepts the words without interruption. She does not defend her past silence or ask to be forgiven. She simply says that avoiding another painful confrontation allowed a procedural decision to become an act of punishment. Then Catherine offers another path. Instead of restoring the royal title or canceling it overnight, she proposes a formal transition. A formal transition is an agreed process that moves authority from one structure to another without suddenly ending funding, staff support, or ongoing programs. Meghan could continue as founding global ambassador, but the charity would no longer operate under Crown authority. Meghan finally admits what matters most. She can accept losing the word royal. She cannot accept women losing services because the family chose punishment over planning. Her fight was never only about status. It was about refusing to let years of work disappear with one erased line. Silence holds between them. Meghan steps aside and opens the door fully. She and Catherine sit together and draft 3 conditions: donor protection, public recognition of Meghan's contribution, and a jointly managed transfer. Neither woman calls it reconciliation. It is something more useful, an honest agreement. At dawn, Meghan and Catherine enter the library together. William and Harry are already waiting, unaware that the 2 women have created a solution neither brother could imagine. The dispute that began with an erased line would now be decided by whether 4 wounded people could place the charity's survival above the satisfaction of defeating one another. By morning, secrecy is no longer possible. A photograph of the altered Balmoral register reaches a London newsroom, and the private dispute explodes across Britain. Yet the first public image is not Meghan leaving Scotland or William defending the crown. It is a newspaper held above a crowd outside Buckingham Palace, its front page showing one blank line beneath Meghan's name. That empty space becomes a symbol onto which the public projects every argument about duty, race, loyalty, punishment, and power. Broadcasters interrupt scheduled coverage within minutes. Newsreaders report that Meghan's charity designation has vanished from official royal documents, while palace communications teams struggle to answer basic questions. A transition agreement is a formal plan for moving a role, organization, or responsibility from one structure to another. The family has discussed such an agreement, but it is not yet signed, leaving officials trapped between the old arrangement and the new one. Commentators divide almost immediately. Some call the removal constitutional housekeeping, meaning routine changes intended to keep royal authority clear and properly controlled. Others argue that cold administrative language has been used to disguise personal exclusion. The debate grows louder because the title carried both practical influence and emotional meaning. To supporters, it represented service. To critics, it represented authority Meghan no longer possessed. Outside Buckingham Palace, one moment captures the entire storm. A woman lifts a copy of the fictional London Chronicle above the crowd. The headline reads, "Erased at Balmoral," while an enlarged image shows the blank line beneath Meghan's name. Supporters and critics argue beneath the palace balcony as cameras carry the scene across the country. Meghan watches the coverage beside Harry in Balmoral's morning room. She feels no satisfaction as the palace faces embarrassment. Instead, she tells him that the charity has vanished from the conversation, exactly as she feared. The Duke of Sussex wants the institution held responsible, but he also sees that public anger is swallowing the women the initiative was created to help. William receives a defensive statement from his communications team. Prince William reads language blaming outdated records and administrative review, then tears the draft in half. He knows evasive wording will make the damage worse. For the first time, the future king accepts that control without honesty will look like cruelty. Catherine proposes that Meghan and William announce the transition together. Harry immediately objects, fearing his wife will be used to legitimize the palace's mistake. Meghan agrees only after William accepts responsibility for the rushed process and promises to protect the charity's funding, staff, and programs. Charles approves the final language before the family leaves Balmoral. The title will not return, but its removal will no longer stand as silent erasure. The world had already judged the blank line. The final task was to decide whether the family would answer it with another performance or with the truth. The final decision does not restore Meghan's charity title. It does something more honest. Before leaving Balmoral, she stands beside William, as the palace confirms that the royal designation will formally end, that the secretive removal was mishandled, and that the initiative's work will continue under an independent structure with Meghan as its founding global ambassador. No one receives everything they wanted. Yet for the first time, the family stops pretending that victory requires another person's disappearance. Meghan returns to the same table where she first discovered the blank line beneath her name. This time, a completed transition agreement waits before her. A transition agreement is a formal document that moves authority, funding, and responsibility from one structure to another. Under its terms, the title Royal Patron of the Commonwealth Women's Initiative will be permanently retired, while the organization continues as an independent charitable foundation beyond direct palace control. Meghan reads the final statement slowly. It confirms that she helped expand the initiative's global reach and that ending the royal designation does not erase her years of service. Her name will return to the historical archive, the official record of past roles and contributions, though it will not appear in the active royal register. Then she reaches the signature line. Meghan pauses over the words, "Founding Global Ambassador." The new role carries no crown authority, but it gives her the freedom to continue the work without confusion or hidden control. She signs her name. Harry remains angry about the secrecy, yet he understands what she has chosen. The Duke of Sussex closes the original folder and tells his wife that the missing title no longer has the power to define what she built. Meghan does not answer immediately. Her silence carries relief, grief, and the cost of accepting an imperfect victory. William then delivers a recorded palace statement accepting responsibility. Prince William says the review itself was justified, but the way it was carried out was wrong. The future king admits that authority without dignity can become cruelty, even when the original concern is legitimate. Charles signs the agreement last. King Charles apologizes for delaying the conversation and confesses that his fear of conflict created a far harsher confrontation. The monarch cannot repair every fracture, but he finally ends the deception surrounding the decision. Anne removes the obsolete register and places the completed agreement in its place. Meghan watches without triumph. William gives a restrained nod. Catherine takes the sealed copy that will protect the charity's staff, donors, and future programs. Meghan leaves Balmoral without the royal title she believed she still possessed, but she is no longer erased. The monarchy keeps control of its name, while being forced to admit that service cannot be deleted through silence. The title ended at Balmoral, but the work survived, and that survival delivered the story's final verdict. Dignity was restored only when power stopped demanding erasure. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.